Hello everyone and welcome to the live stream. I'm hoping this works a little bit better than last time. Have to wait and see. Hopefully there'll be no need to send out a new URL in 5 minutes and be frantically flying around. Do say hello in the chat. So introduce yourselves. It'd be nice to know who's there. I can see there are 20 of you lurking out there. So just say hello in the chat and it'd be great to talk to you all. So I hope you've had a good week, another week in lockdown, another week in isolation. And we'll probably find out on Thursday if and when we're going to move on to the next step of this. But who knows? However, it's been absolutely fabulous to look at all of your amazing pictures so far. So we've got 20 minutes worth of making better pictures. Who have we got? We've got, oh, hello Gabe, hello Lizette. Really nice to see you guys. Thank you for checking in. So let's figure out what we're going to do today. I'm going to talk about composition a little bit. And I'm going to also talk to you about some of the great pictures that you've taken. I'm going to kick off with that and just run through some of the pictures that I've seen that you've uploaded. I was absolutely staggered. Aditya, it's good to see you here. I know we were struggling to get your account working, so I'm really pleased. The fact you're here, that's good. Hello, Connor. Hello, Katie. Hello, guys. It's really, really good to see you. And I hope you're all keeping well. I hope your families are well. And I hope you're making the best of what is quite a weird situation. Right, so this week I want to, in our 20 minutes worth, I want to try to give you some hints and some tips to taking better pictures. So we'll look at your pictures and then I'll go through the, hi Selma, hello Ellen, nice to see you. So C. Doogie is Connor, okay, now we know his alter ego. Hello Iman, lovely to see you. So I'm going to go through some hints and tips to help you take better pictures, and then I'm going to set you a challenge. So like I say, about 15-20 minutes I hope. Hello Anupreet, nice to see you. I hope you are doing well. So first of all, I want to run through these really quickly, and I'm sure none of you will be embarrassed for me to show your photograph because I just thought these were all such high quality. I'm going to whiz through these really quickly. The theme from last week was lockdown, about the lockdown blues, about being stuck inside, about all the isolation and feeling sometimes like prisoners in our own home. It's all been a bit weird, hasn't it? So this was from Gabe. I love the fact he's got the raindrops on his window there, looking out to where he'd like to be. But again, we're stuck inside, which is not the way we would want it. I think it's even harder when the weather's so nice. I was amazed with Sharjeev's marigolds. I think this is a cracking picture, not least because the actual flowers themselves are tack sharp, as in it's absolutely totally sharp. There's no blur, whereas the blur that's around the outside is of a really high standard. They call it bokeh, the quality of the blur. So I think this is really, really impressive. I absolutely love that, as I did Callum's path. And actually Callum's photograph kind of takes us into what I want to talk about today, which is how you can lead people's eye around the photograph. And I don't know about you, but when I first saw this, my eye immediately just went down the path towards the cars and the trees at the end. Hi Zainab, nice to see you. Hi Erin, nice to see you. Hi Ellen. Oh, this is good. We've got lots of people in. Guys, your photographs have been absolutely fabulous this week. So that was Callum and his path. Then we had one of many dazzling photographs by Erin. This one I think was one of my favourites because A, you've got Crawley like a ghost town. B, it's after the rain has fallen, and Erin's gone and shot this after the rain's fallen, which gives you so many more options. And I think the winning thing for me here is having that signpost in the reflection on the puddle. Absolutely fabulous. So really lovely picture there. I enjoyed that one, and it is ghostly. It is lockdown. No one out there. I love this, Catherine's bluebells. Again, we've got the raindrops on the bluebells after the rain. Looks absolutely gorgeous, glistening, lovely image there. Then we've got Adam. I thought Adam, again, I'm going to come to this idea later on. See how he's using the tree on the right hand side as a frame for the image? I think it looks really, really lovely, and he's caught the blossom there beautifully. Nice photo, Adam. I love that one. Miss Brennan, well, this is a subject close to her heart, and it looks like a very nice donut, but it's beautifully shot. And see the sort of the filling glistening there. It's enough to make your mouth water. And then we go on, and in fact this is Connor's lily. I think it's a lily anyway, and the shape here is a bit, it reminds me of one of the areas we're going to cover a bit later on, which is golden section, one of the sort of rules that you can use. But again, I think Connor's lily is beautiful. I like the raindrops on it. I think it's a really lovely image. One from Erin again. I've picked her twice. She's trumped me here. I managed to pick to sort of shoot my road. If you can remember, my empty road with the keep clear sign, I think it was. This looks like the M23 to me. Was it the M23? Hi, Karina. Nice to see you. Welcome on board. I think, Erin, this was the M23, I think. I love the fact you've used that filter as well to give it that purple glow. I think it looks absolutely lovely. What a cracking image. And fancy that, the only vehicle on the road, and that is one heck of a busy road. Presumably shot from a bridge over the motorway, or else that would have been a very dangerous thing to do. Well, what's not to like about Mr. Leadbitter's dog? What a lovely dog. He looks like trouble though. So that's his dog. Again from Miss Brennan. This was an image from, I'm assuming, inside her house, but it does give you that idea of being stuck inside, of almost being captive inside your own house. So I love that. Using that frame was really clever, and it works really well. We've got Zainab's lone pigeon surveying. It was the M23. I thought so. Yeah, brilliant shot, Erin. That was really good. Zainab, I love this. Something about the bourgeoisie in your description, which I thought was quite interesting. Didn't quite know what to make of that, but I think it's a photographer's eye when you can spot this lone detail and make it the focus of your image. So I thought that was a cracking idea. What else have we got? Now this is Daisy's sun bursting through. What I love about this image is you've got very much the focus of the tree, but then you've got this very clever idea of having the sort of diagonal or the line of the garages. And it's interesting how the garages themselves are actually quite ugly things, but it works really well with this image, the way your eye is drawn towards the sunlight and the tree. Absolutely lovely, and some beautiful glows coming off the tree there. So I thought that was again a really good image. So the numbers from this week: 44 photos uploaded, 64 members, about half of them have managed to make their way to Flickr. And well done, guys, for having to deal with the yellow waiting room. I know it was a pain, but we got there in the end. What can I say? So I think it's been a really brilliant start to Hazelwick Yellow, and I just hope that you continue uploading photographs of the same quality. It's just good fun to have something to do, isn't it, in this rather weird and uncertain time. So now let's move on and talk about composition, and I want to go through as many ideas as I can. The plan today is to give you a toolbox of some things that you probably already knew or were aware of, and some maybe new things that you can try over the course of this week. And then I'll get to the competition, the activity at the end. But I want to start by thinking about how the human eye actually looks at an image. Now, it sounds like a strange thing to say, but the human eye doesn't see the whole image at once. The actual angle of vision, of sharp vision, is really small in the human eye. Do me a favour, hold your hand out in front of you as though you're pressing your hand against a wall, and then focus on your little finger, just your little finger, the pinky finger. And then notice how your thumb is completely blurry. You can make out it's a thumb, but you've got no detail. That's while you're looking at your pinky. Now move your focus to your thumb and notice that again your little finger is totally blurry. Now while you're looking at your thumb, your index finger is kind of sharp-ish. It's acceptably sharp, but bear in mind that the human eye can only pick out a tiny amount of sharp detail. That angle of vision is really small. So what does that tell us? It tells us that when you look at a picture, your eyes actually jump around the image. They dart around the image in some sort of a haphazard way, sending details back to the brain, and the brain's processing all this data and builds it up into one big picture. That's where composition is so important, because with composition you can actually boss the eye around and dictate the way in which the image is absorbed, is viewed, is devoured by the eye. And that's one of the areas we're going to look at today, is how you can use some of these hints and tips to try to get the viewer to see what you want to see. And I guess the other part of composition, apart from the tools that we'll look at, is this notion of having a story or a subject or a purpose, that actually your image has a reason behind it, rather than just being documentary evidence of where you were standing. There is a difference, that an image will have a story. Right, let's do a little activity. I'm going to show you a picture in about a minute's time. When you look at the picture, I would like you to try to be conscious of your eye's behaviour. It's a strange thing, so I'll say it again. Try to be conscious of your eye's behaviour. What's the first thing that your eye sees? What does your eye do next? What features stand out? Do your eyes start at the front of the image and work its way back? Or did you start in the middle and then work your way sideways? Or did you start at the back and work your way forward? It'll depend on the image, but the one I'm going to throw at you now, I want you to think about that. As soon as you see the image, put a rating in the chat. Rate the image from 1 to 5. 1 is not great and 5 is the best image in the world. And if you get a chance to write in what you think the image, what the issue with the composition is, that would be interesting. Tell me in the chat, right? So I'm going to show you the image now, and I want you to immediately stick in, follow your eyes, tell me what your eyes are doing, but give me a rating from 1 to 5, and then tell me in the chat what the issue with the composition is. I might even treat you with some really cheesy music while you're looking at the picture. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. I told you it was cheesy. Okay, so we've got Lizette has said a 3, which I think is actually quite generous, but it's okay, isn't it? It's fine. So let's have a think about it. So did you get a chance to think about what order you saw things in? Don't be afraid. Ellen saying 3, Salma saying 2. Yeah, I think that's really, really fair. I mean, goodness knows how we're rating it or how we're coming up with that, but it's okay, isn't it? It's all right. It's quite pretty. Yeah, people are saying 2. Erin's giving it a 2. Katie's giving it a 2. Sharjiva 3. Karina a 2. So you're all in the same ballpark. Andy Preet saying 2. Iman saying 2. Zainab saying 2. So you've all come up with your idea. Connor is saying 2 as well. So yeah, I think it probably is a 2. I think it's okay. So I took this. This was you've probably heard of it. Seven Sisters. There's that big cliff there. It's quite near where we live. From where I was standing, the view was beautiful. The vista was amazing. And those houses that you can barely make out in the background were much more prominent from where I was standing. I put the horizon in about the right place. The colours are quite nice. You've got some moss or whatever it is on the water itself, which is yellow. The green grass is quite nice. But this is not a composed image, and that's the issue that we have here. This is simply recording the scene accurately, and I've recorded it in terms of the lighting is okay, the exposure is fine, there's the right amount of contrast, the sky is a bit wishy-washy. Admittedly, I could have mucked around with that. I didn't. But what's this photo about? You look at it and think, well, it's some water, there's a few nice shapes, it's a few colours, there's some houses if you've got very good eyesight in the background. Yeah, Aditya went for a 3 as well. But there's no satisfaction in this image whatsoever. It's okay, but it's simply an image which shows where I was standing. It's not a composition. And so that's what we need to try to get away from, is that you're in this situation where you're looking at something amazing. How can you make it look amazing when you're actually taking the picture? So let's do same again. Now this one is a different image. I don't think it's necessarily the best image in the world or the worst image in the world, but for me, this image is different. So same thing again. Straight away, give it a grading, 1 to 5. We were coming out at 2s and 3s last time. I think we could say 2.5 was about where it was. And what about in terms of composition? And I promise you again some cheesy music. So here we go, 3, 2, 1, and here's the image. Excellent. The Cheese Fest has finished. So we've got a 3 immediately from Ellen, which I think is similar to what you gave last time it was. I'll be curious to know. Okay, so this is kind of there. Is that I think this image is slightly better, which is what you're looking at. And by the way, it's just my opinion. It may well be that if you were choosing which one you would have to look at, you'd look at the first one. But a lot of you are coming in with 3s or 4s as opposed to 2s or 3s, and I think that that's absolutely spot on. So what do we got? We've got Zainab 3, Katie 4, Sharji 4, Anyapreet 3, Connor 4, Erin 4, Karina 3, my son 3, that's quite mean, Salma 3, and Aditya again 3.5. So I would agree with that. I don't think it's a brilliant picture, but I think it's slightly better. But what I want to try to get to is why it's a slightly better image. So yes, the ratings were better that time. I guess for me the key question here is whether this image had a purpose. The first one didn't have a purpose at all. It was simply documentary evidence of me having stood in that place holding a camera. That's all that it really was, and it was properly exposed. It was a competent photo, but it wasn't a good one. This one does have a purpose. Its purpose was to show the meandering bends in the river. It's got a clear objective to it. Interestingly, and I'm just curious, can you do a yes or a no to this? How did your eyes see the photo? When I look at this photo, I find that my eyes bounce on that diagonal going left to right in the middle, and then they head away towards the left-hand side of the image. So I kind of do like an S shape, or a number 2 shape almost, around the image. I'll be curious to know if that's what you did. But that was totally lacking in the previous image, wasn't it? There was no sense of where you start looking or where you finished looking. And you built up this image and it really had it didn't really seem to have much of a purpose to it. So this one I heavily cropped to try to emphasize the river. I took away the colors because they were distracting. So just to show these basic shapes. And as an image, it just works better. You know, forget the whys or the wherefores, but it just looks better. It's a more interesting shape to behold. And so in general, in photography, you find that diagonal lines will add tension, add some dynamism, and add some extra interest to your pictures. So I'm going to whiz through some tools now. This is your toolbox today, and see how many of these you already know, and see if you can incorporate these into your images over the next week or so. And I'm talking about shape, framing, texture, colour, form, suggested movement and position. So let's kick off with the first one. A really good idea in photography in general is to fill the frame and not leave lots of wasted space around the outside. Now that's not to say that it's a bad thing to leave a lot of empty space in your photograph, because it may well be that that's part of that's part of the purpose of the image. But in this example, the excitement here is these motorbikes being on one side because they're cornering, but all of that grey stuff around the outside, the Armco barrier that they crash into if they fall off, that horrible chain link fence that's grey, it's just not nice to look at. So cropping right in there and filling your image with the exciting stuff is what you really want to do. The next thing, again, I showed you this image last week. I don't think it's a particularly outstanding image, but I do think that it makes good use of diagonal lines, and it does draw your eye around the image from start to finish, and I think it works quite well. And again, with this one, I had to get rid of the colour because the colours weren't that pleasant. The grass was kind of a murky sort of greyish brown, and it just didn't look great. But when you took the colours away, it made an awful lot more sense. And having the trees and outline like that work quite nicely. Again, I showed you this one last week, and this is the idea of diagonal lines. Diagonal lines adding tension. So when I'm wandering around, if I can see those lines that I can get into my picture, I know that maybe I'm onto something. Incidentally, if I go out for a whole day shooting photographs, when I get back at the end of it, if I've got 2 good images, I've done really, really well. You know, if you look at things critically, because very often you'll try it from various different angles and you come back and think, no, that doesn't work, no, that doesn't work. Good idea at the time, but it didn't work. And if you end up with a couple of good images at the end of a day, you've done a really, really good job. So this is the rule of thirds, and it's quite simple. And you might recognise this grid from your phone, and I'll show you in a minute or two how to put it on and take it off your iPhone. I can't show you how to do it for Android because I haven't got an Android phone, but the idea is you put the things of the most interest, the most interesting bits, you put where I've put those purple circles. So where those lines intersect, so you've got 4 lines, 2 vertical, 2 horizontal, and you put the most interesting elements in your picture. It could be a face, it could be a detail, it could be whatever the subject of your picture is, you put into those spaces. And also, you line up any lines in your image with the horizontal and vertical lines. And this is to get you away from plonking your subject dead center, because it often makes for a really flat and boring image. So that's the rule of thirds. It's an easy one to stick to, and it's an easy one to keep inside your head. This is one that I showed you because it's a really good example of shooting three people. Look at how the bottom horizontal is against the bench. And then I've got my two verticals, which are the two people. The intersection there is my son's head. And actually, the way the dog's head just pokes out underneath kind of works. The story there is the dog's the nosy one. The simple story, but it works. And if I'd shot that in any other way, it simply wouldn't have worked. But as it so happens, they are dead centre in the picture. Don't forget it can work in portrait too. So the star of the show here is this piece of wood, which is covered in moss. It's weathered. It looks fabulous. And obviously you're taking more time doing your walks now with the limited time we get to be outside. But had I put that dead centre, it wouldn't have worked at all. So it works in portrait as well as landscape. You just flip the grid up on its side. So how do you get the grid on your iPhone? It's pretty straightforward. Go to settings, and then you have to scroll. You've actually got to scroll for about 6 miles on my phone, but you scroll down until you get to camera. Click on camera, and then inside camera you've got grid on the top there, and you can toggle the grid on and off. And it's helpful sometimes to have it there just to help focus your mind on your composition. Anyway, so that's how you do it for iPhone. I imagine for Android it's very, very similar. So this is the more complicated tool. This one is golden section. While you're looking at this diagram, which is interesting because it's all about the Fibonacci sequence. This is actually, there's a lot of maths involved in this diagram. But were you aware that if you look at the red squiggly line and stare straight at it, and then you turn to the right, and you can see that it's exactly the same image is repeated again. It's as though it's been turned onto its right-hand side. And then if you look again, it's actually been turned upside down. It's getting half the size each time, and it keeps going on and on and on and on and on. And this is the same idea as if you're in a changing room in a shop and there are two mirrors, and you can see your image going off into infinity. This is a sort of a graphical way of explaining that, the Fibonacci sequence, the golden section. So the idea behind this is that you put the interesting stuff either around the curve or at the intersections or on the line. And it's amazing how often good images work in some way with the golden section. It's more hard to imagine than the rule of thirds, but it's an incredibly effective way of actually making your pictures really stand out. This is one of the most famous pictures of all time, taken by a guy called Henri Cartier-Bresson. He was a very famous French photographer. He was best known for going around Paris and taking shots with his handheld Leica, which was a very new technology at the time. And you can see here how the head of the cyclist matches up perfectly with that intersection between line A and line B and D. And also how the railings match up completely with a line that runs from E to F. The curb doesn't match around with the sort of loop you've got there, but you can see how it almost fits it like a glove, doesn't it? Which is quite interesting. And when you think about it, there's nothing actually that exciting on the face of it in this image. It's all about the composition. That's what's so clever about it. And don't forget, also works in portrait, not just landscape. This is one of his other very famous images. And this was one of a woman jumping over a puddle at the back of the Gare du Nord in Paris. A reflection which is simply staggering in the puddle. And there's been big argument in the photography world about how rehearsed this was, because he said that he just took it off the cuff, and many accused him of having rehearsed it. Frankly, does it matter? No. But you can see again how the woman's head, how her leg matches up with the line from B to D, kind of. But you can see again how this fits like a glove. I've had to wriggle around with the diagram there because this was actually a slightly more square shot. But again, it's a really good thing to bear in mind when you are shooting your images. So now, by the way, with this image, those white lines have been drawn on afterwards, but the aim of that is to show that these diagonals have been created by the angle in which this car was shot. And the fact that that added tension, it added this sense of speed to it. And obviously the sense of speed is added because there's motion blur in the wheels, but equally those angles work really, really well. Had that just been shot straight up, it would not have had the same feeling about it at all. So you get this sense of tension, dynamism and interest when you add diagonal lines to your image. This reminds me of Adam's picture, if you can cast your mind back to his tree, where he was using the trunk of a tree to frame the rest of his picture. This was when I was on holiday in Nice, and the idea was that I wanted to capture I just saw that the church was bathed in sunlight, but I wanted to frame it with the buildings, so I ended up coming back and back and back and back and back. And what works nicely here is, first of all, you've got the buildings that are ever getting smaller, further away, and closer together as you get towards the church. You've got those diagonals moving towards the church, but you've also got the lines on the pavement, on the paving stones, moving towards the church. There's all sorts of stuff going on there. It's just those no entry signs that really annoyed me. I could have used Photoshop to get rid of them, I suppose, but that was quite an interesting one. Framing. I took this years and years ago of my son. I could have stood at the bottom and taken a picture of him coming out of the slide, but it was way more interesting to go to the top and to use the slide itself as a frame. I got rid of the colour because it was some horrible plastic. It was just nasty, and it clashed with the clothes that he was wearing. So that in black and white worked a lot better, but it was the framing that actually made that quite interesting and turned it into a story. Think about how you can use colour. If you see colour, how can you get details of that colour? Clashing colours, complementary colours, opposite colours, primary colours. Can you get colours to tell the story? And again, this was a detail. Not a perfect image. The background wasn't great on this, but again, it does go some way to telling a story, perhaps about friendship. Think about viewpoint. This image is very different because the photographer got down low to take this picture of the girl. The girl is dominant. She's in charge of this photograph. This has been taken standing up from your regular height, 5'1", 5'8", 5'10", whatever you are. Everything looks about the same. So don't be afraid to get above your subject, to get below your subject, to just try different angles, to turn your camera through 90 degrees to see if you can capture something else in terms of the picture. And I think that really works in that case. And again, this viewpoint, this was me shooting up a tree, and it looks well because it looks nice because it brings out the texture of the tree as well. And then this one here, quite spooky. I think dolls are always quite spooky. Taken from the top of the doll's head. Again, it works really well. And the way the doll's getting smaller and smaller the further away that you go. So, all of that, fill the frame, those two laws we talked about, rule of thirds, golden section, shape, colour, form and texture. Try and change the viewpoint. Try and lead the viewer's eye around the picture. You try and determine how the viewer is going to see your image. And don't forget to experiment and take photos. Like I say, if you get one good picture from a day's work, you've done a really, really, really good job. All right, so you've done really well. Who we've got? We've got 23 people live, which I think is absolutely brilliant. Well done, guys. I'm really pleased with that. I will save this and put it on YouTube. It'll be on YouTube in the next half an hour or so. The challenge for this week. So we're going to stop the lockdown challenge. I thought you did incredibly well with that. I would like you to try a kind of portrait challenge. So I've called it Figure It Out. That's why I've got the word figure in there. It doesn't have to be human portraits. You can use your family. That's absolutely fine. But I'm thinking about whether it's humans, animals, a scene that you set up with your belongings, with your toys, with your Lego, with your favourite things. It doesn't matter. But I would like you to create a portrait where you're using some of the techniques we've covered today. So think about golden section. So maybe have a look at that golden section image and think, okay, I'm going to try and arrange things, interesting things, in different ways using golden section, and just see what you come up with. Some will work and some will be absolutely shocking. Just give it a go and see what happens. So beyond that, the theme of the image is entirely up to you. I just want you to use those compositional skills. If you can incorporate anything along the lines of lines, viewpoint, color, texture, framing and so on within a frame, obviously some of those have to be in any image, but see if you can achieve that by this time next week, and then I can show the best of those at next week's live stream. Do any of you have any questions that you would like to ask me? I'm going to give you some more cheesy music. If you've got anything you'd like to ask me about the club, or you're confused about anything, now would be a really good time to ask. Okay, that was what I figured. So listen, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you have an amazing week, and I will speak to you all this time, the same time, same place, next week, 3 o'clock. I'll send the URL through. Annoying, it's a different one each time. So great to talk to you. It's been a pleasure. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye, guys.